Hello! Welcome to the Game Audio Hour. This is a fortnightly podcast where we discuss all things game audio. From creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets, here is where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And wow, it's extremely hard to do that intro when you're hearing 3 different echoes of it, I found. Did I actually say that okay? I had 3.
You said it perfect.
Oh man, I had 3 different YouTube tabs open. And so I had that crazy echo of my own voice there. I'm going to close those, and things are great. I just want to say welcome again to Game Audio Hour, and my favorite, my first game experience related to the recent Microsoft ZeniMax deal was probably Commander Keen. Did any of you guys play that? Alex? Or was there another game, perhaps, that you played related to those guys?
No, I haven't played anything by Bethesda ever.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Was that sarcasm? That must have been sarcasm, right? What?
Well, I'm going to leave that one with you.
Man. Okay.
No.
Okay, you heard it right here. You heard it here first. Alex May, a purveyor of virtual reality experiences, has never played Doom or Wolfenstein or Quake or a lot of these other major 3D.
Sarcasm.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I was just thinking. I mean, yes. Anyway.
Hey, Chase, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I have at least played one title of theirs at some point in my time.
Oh, man. I mean, there's a whole lot of games there. I mean, I just wanted to just sort of throw it in there. So often, we get into what we're dealing with in the game audio world, so we don't always talk about these big things that happen. But I was super surprised to see this big, massive purchase, $7.5 billion, Microsoft acquiring ZeniMax. And of course, there's Bethesda Softworks, but there's also id Software. There's Arcane Studios in France. There's a lot of studios related to this. It's not just Elder Scrolls and Fallout and all that. And I've been seeing some conversation online saying, yeah, there's that, but there's so much out there. This is a huge, huge deal for ZeniMax, for Microsoft, and this means stuff in the immediate future when it comes to gaming, when it comes to that next generation that we are on the cusp of. It's also kind of scary because I've actually told myself I'm not buying a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox because I don't need to spend the money right now. I really don't.
I'm right there with you, Vince. I cannot justify spending the money just yet. I just want to see what the titles are going to be like and let some of the first runs kind of go through. I typically would buy the second gen type of stuff, but I've got a birthday coming up, so maybe someone wants to gift me a place. I haven't bought my own PlayStation since PS2, so I'm just saying, maybe. No, just kidding. Don't buy me a PlayStation 5. It's way too expensive. Xbox as well. Like, I'd love to wish you could just rent one and just give it a go. Still expensive though, right?
Rent one. Oof. Alex, are you in on this next generation of gaming?
I am not, because I mean, I mostly my game consumption habits are mostly centered around PC, just because that's kind of what we're developing for it, as well as like VR platforms and stuff like that. So the other thing is more of a physical thing, that like my TV, where I really want to be playing games, is in the living room upstairs, close by to where my kids are sleeping. So it's kind of like, if I was going to get something like that, my kids would definitely want to play it probably more than I would have time to actually play it myself. So they'd want it upstairs, which means that it's kind of hard for me to play when they're asleep at night. So a whole bunch of very pressing logistical issues.
Yeah, that sounds tough. I mean, I do eventually want to try a PS5, Xbox One. I'm looking forward to playing it, probably at one of my friends' places. I see in the chat some people are trying to desperately pre-order a PS5. There was a little bit of a fiasco there in I guess Sony said that, hey, pre-orders are happening tomorrow. I think tomorrow at that point was Wednesday. And then the retailers said, oh, well, we're going to open pre-orders now, Tuesday. And then suddenly the retailers got swamped and everything got all out of hand, and now no one can pre-order a PS5. Ooh.
Yeah, it seems to be kind of par for the course these days for these kinds of big gaming related hardware releases, that it never really goes well. I mean, look at poor old Nvidia with their new graphics card as well. That was a bit of a botch up, which I think in the news today they apologized for that. And but I think in that case it was a whole bunch of bots doing something or other. Basically, yeah, when it comes to gaming and hardware and important releases, it's just a madhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not getting a new video card either. I'm happy with mine. It's good enough for some decent VR stuff, some decent 3D gaming. I'll be all right. Michael Hoffman is saying in the chat, he's going to be waiting for more games to come out for the platform. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm really looking forward to a year, 2 years from now, when we see companies really pushing what those platforms are doing, not just PS5 and Xbox One Series X, but also those new NVIDIA cards. It will take some time before developers really push that thing. And I don't just mean taking Crysis and running it at 8K. Something more than that. Something really beyond that.
Yeah, and also there's the Quest 2 that was leaked and then announced a few days later last week on the VR side of things, which is also a very attractive proposition if you don't mind the book face. The book face.
I got to admit, I actually decided to pre-order a Quest 2. I think part of it was actually the price. So Xbox and PlayStation 5, they were both at the $500 price point, and Quest 2, $300. And that's not bad. I mean, I did spend a little bit more on accessories, but I was still well under what I would be paying for a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox for the next generation. So I'm really excited.
We had the last week we had not Oculus Connect. Freudian slip there. It was actually called Facebook Connect. Yeah, which I here in Europe, of course, watching that meant being up online from 7 p.m. until about 2 a.m. in the morning. So I was not there for the end of it, but I checked out the John Carmack part of the which is always the best part. He's so sort of refreshingly anti-establishment is the best way to describe him. He's just like, it really is, just straight to it. And I think that for me personally, like I'm not a anti-Facebook kind of person, but I also hate it with a passion.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning that I prefer not to use it, but then I don't really mind if I have to be, tracked by Facebook with my usage on Oculus platforms. But with John Carmack still at Oculus, it still feels like it's kind of okay somehow. But when he leaves, if he ever leaves, then that's going to really change things, I think. But anyway, the Quest 2 apparently has, as well as upgraded pretty much everything and downgraded price, apparently the audio quality is also considerably better with their downfiring speakers on the hardware unit. So that will be something that's going to be interesting to try.
Yeah, when I was at the Oculus Connect last year, John Carmack spent at least 15 minutes talking about how important audio was and its significance and how they were going to be moving forward with the Quest in that regard, for that to be a greater experience overall, and that it should not be a sidestep from the development, but an inclusivity within. And so I was in the audience just doing, thank you.
Yeah, that's, I mean, John Carmack is great for many, many reasons. And actually, look at that interesting segue there with the earlier Microsoft ZeniMax topic there. He is significant for many reasons, but it is fantastic that he has like such a he cares about audio, and so that's kind of definitely reflected in Oculus's engineering approach. So yeah, what's moving on from those newsy topics? What's going on with your what kind of projects are you working on these days, and what sort of technical or artistic challenges are you facing up against these days? Chase?
Well, I'm working on getting a demo kind of polished up and such, and just been working and trying to get that situated in MuseScore 3. And shout out to Will Orge, who helped me with us quite a bit, and he was giving me a lot of pointers and tips. But the biggest challenge, I have to say, is getting the bar numbers to be at the bottom of the score. And this doesn't exist online. And so I just want to share this tip right now that if you're using this, obviously, first of all, probably just invest in yourself and get Dorico or Sibelius or something of that professional manner. But what you have to do is go into, if you're familiar with MuseScore at least, just go into the format for style, and under style, you'll see measure numbers, click that, and then have interval 1, and then a specific amount, which is for at the very bottom, you'll see text styles. And then to the right, you'll see 11 for the offset, the X and Y axis. 11 is your X, and 110 to 83 to 110 is your Y. Now, this is important. Go back and right click to every single part and then unclick the automatically that's attached to the score, because it ruins the score completely. And this will just obliterate it. And that's not in any of the manuals, no forums or anything. I figured this out today. It's fresh, hot off the press. I know you won't be knowing exactly what I'm speaking of, but if you have any questions, hopefully I'm going to be doing a tutorial, be on my YouTube channel to kind of do that. But it's very important for the conductor score, at least, to be visible and read by such. So that was a challenge in itself, and hopefully that's going to be it.
I just want to quickly follow up on that. So, like, Chase, I know you're talking about doing this orchestra scoring session, and preparing music scores sucks. And speaking as someone that has done Sibelius and done Dorico, and I've messed around with MuseScore, I think you might be giving those more professional programs a little bit too much credit, because it is still difficult as all heck to get things working the way that you want. So to put it into a little bit of perspective for some of the more general audience out there, when you are delivering music scores to be recorded remotely, typically overseas by another orchestra, you can't be there to explain stuff. No, you have your score to explain everything. And typically those different orchestras and music coordination facilities, they want the score prepared in a very specific way. You have bar numbers here, you have page numbers here, your conductor score is laid out this way. You're using this page size, which is important. Hey, especially for us in America, because we're weird and we like inches and they don't, and stuff like that. And preparing those scores is actually really annoying, because a couple years ago I had to do the same thing, and I thought I was all figured out because I had done it before for this one orchestra in Spain, and it was great. Oh wait, it's a different session with a different orchestra. Actually, it was the same company, but they were doing a different session in a different country, and this orchestra wanted it in this way. So I had to change the guidelines a bit. Okay, I don't want my bar numbering this way. I want it actually with every single system instead of every 5 bars or whatever. And I was having hell trying to make these changes. I thought I knew what I was doing. In the end, I ended up emailing 2 other people, and one was a finale expert. It's like, oh, I think you have to do it this way. Another person was a Sibelius expert, and he realized that he had done something really deeply in the system that made it just work for him in a way that it didn't for me, because I didn't have certain plugins installed and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, man, this sucks. You know what? I'm going to upgrade from Sibelius to Dorico. Dorico's great. Obviously, I did this well after my project was done. But just because it's the new hotness doesn't mean that it's going to fix all these problems that are out there. It is still going to be difficult. It's still going to be really hard. Finale, Sibelius, Dorico, MuseScore, they're all just really deep tools where things that seem like it needs to be immediately accessible, immediately understood, easy to execute on, a lot of guys actually don't feel that that's the case, and we're just going to have to continue hammering away at it, either with our hands on the keyboard or with our head against the wall in order to make it happen. It's hard. Music preparation is hard. There's a reason that there's a lot of individuals and companies that are out there that try to work to make music preparation as easy as possible for you, because it is freaking hard. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I highly concur with all of that. It is very, very hard. And that's why hopefully you get to a level where you have teams.
Yeah.
Or friends. Friends are better, I believe. And teams are good too, but friends really have your back. So I'm thankful for
Yeah.
friends.
Will in the
Cool.
sorry, Will in the comments is saying, yeah, Sibelius is very much the devil we know. It's horrible, but hey, at least it is possible to Google for all the 10,000 silly issues. Oh man.
Sounds much like Windows 10. Or
Whoops.
I have the answer for both of you, and for anybody who's struggling with notation software.
What?
The answer is Lily Pond. For those of you who are listening and not watching, Vince is actually cringing and crying and.
Lily Pond is a fantastic system for engraving. Well, I mean, I think it is in fact a really fantastic engraving system. It's great.
We should probably, in case people aren't aware of what Lily Pond actually is, just as a quick primer. If you're familiar with LaTeX, spelt latex, it is basically, how would you describe it? It's a text-based document formatting markup language.
Yeah.
And Lily Pond is the music notation version of that. So essentially, you create a text file, you type in the notes, you type in the data that you want on the notation page using a very, very simple kind of like a scripting language, and you compile it, and then Lily Pond compilers will produce a PDF perfectly formatted. Everything is exactly as you intended. Pristine quality PDF from your source text file, and that's basically the way that Lily Pond works.
I think that Lily Pond is in fact really ideal, but it does require I would say a very clear separation of church and state. So in other words, like once your composition is absolutely 100% done, sure. But even if I'm doing something like preparing for a music scoring session, I don't think I'm ever going to be 100% done. Like if it's me actually there in person, I might actually be in the control room saying, this is not quite right. Let's do some quick edits. Let's open it in Sibelius, change some things, print out a bunch of stuff, and then we'll get it ready for after lunch for the second recording session. It's things like that. And I've actually had to do stuff like that where it's like, thankfully it hasn't been super major stuff. Sometimes it's been things where, oh wait, there's a typo that we missed there. And sometimes it's been things like, we should actually totally change this violins 2 line. Let's totally rewrite it. We'll get it ready so that either for the next cue we could put it on their stands, or after lunch we'll put it on their stands, and then it's ready. Lily Pond is great. I think it really is the best thing when it comes to making beautiful, readable music output. But that clear separation of composition versus engraving, it's hard for me to imagine getting to that point with stuff, especially in games, where even besides the music being ready, then there's this other layer of the game actually being 100% ready as well. So, yeah.
Chase, have you ever used Lily Pond?
No, I haven't. So I'm learning along with the listeners today.
Okay. Yeah, no, actually, in all fairness, I was being a little bit facetious
Yes.
with Lily Pond, but basically, it is as Vince said, it's a good option if you're like me and you never write notation for anybody, because that's I don't have the opportunity to be doing orchestral stuff, or don't have the know-how or the need to be doing orchestral stuff, because if I do, I just get one of you guys to do it for me. But yeah, if you want something quick and light and you have the part and you just want to slam it in, get out a good score for some reason, then Lily Pond could be an option. But obviously, well, it's free. That's one thing. Slight learning curve and learning the syntax of the scripting language in order to make it work. But yeah, it's an option. It's an option. How about you, Vince? What kind of technical and artistic challenges are you kind of going through on the projects that you're working on at the moment?
Well, honestly, I've been messing around more on sound effects lately, and I realized that I've been having a lot of different options for doing some of these sound effects. And by that, I mean, wow, I've got my hardware and I've got my software. I have invested in the past in stuff, especially a lot of older gear from the decades previous. Like I've got my Roland JV 1080 that I love. I've got a 5080 that I actually just recently used on some stuff. And then rectifying that with all the software versions of these plugins. Do I want to use my hardware EMU Proteus 2000? Or do I want to use my Kontakt version of the Proteus 2000, which sounds pretty good? Lately, I've actually been doing a lot of hardware because there is that compromise. Where are we going to have the speed, right? We often associate software with being really fast for doing things, but I find that that's not always the case. Sometimes it's actually faster if you've got the real tactile knob that's there. Okay, I'm gonna quickly do this with my thumb on this particular knob. Bam! I know exactly what I'm doing with the quality of the sound with that, in a way that I can't because the Kontakt version just doesn't do it. I actually have some hardware here right now that I've been messing with. I mean, I could easily do this with a plugin. You probably have something that's free or relatively cheap that does it, but
hey, hello, I'm a robot. Isn't that cool?
I, you know, just doing stuff like that, it's fun. And sometimes you really need that in order to keep the energy up. Maybe, and that's also the other compromise there. Maybe I need to do something in a more inefficient way in order to maintain my own productive energy and keep myself moving. Sometimes the most efficient way isn't the best way to do something. So I've got to change it up for myself to keep the energy going, to keep myself productive.
I think that's the reason that a lot of people, the people who really like those 90s digital synths with their 90s digital synthesizer interfaces, meaning, a tiny 2x16 LED screen with like a, page up, down, value up, down, not even like a jog wheel or anything like that. When you talk about workflow with synthesizers and workflow with hardware, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is analog synthesizers with all their knobs, because you just play and you just turn, you got two hands and off you go. You just keep tweaking around until it sounds good. But with a digital synthesizer from the 90s, the hardware ones, they're, tweaking those guys. There's a lot of effort that's required. If you're playing a preset on a JV 1080 and the preset works fine, that's great. But if you think, oh, maybe I just want to like slow down the attack a little bit or increase the release there or just drop the filter down a little bit or something like that, then you're kind of squinting at this little screen kind of going like this. And actually our idea of efficiency with our equipment is usually centered around something being very fast to achieve and therefore efficiency being fast to achieve, that is a good workflow. However, yeah, like you said, Vince, there are actually times when the opposite, where it's a little bit more convoluted and a little bit more process involved in order to do something, can actually also be effective for workflow, even though it may not necessarily be efficient. So, yeah, that's it's an interesting idea there about the especially when you have the plugin version and the hardware version of the same thing. Like in that kind of situation, actually, you have two completely different effects on your workflow based on that difficult to use hardware, easy to use software. Efficiency is not always about speed, I suppose.
Yeah. Man, it's actually really getting me, especially with the EMU hardware. I think in general, if you get something like Roland Cloud, I think the Roland Cloud versions of things like the JV1080 are in fact easier to use. I've got these contact versions of the EMU Proteus sounds and the Proteus 2000, Virtuoso 2000, stuff like that. There were these really, I thought they were cool, late 90s romplers that had a nice collection of sounds, but also a nice collection of filters. These contact libraries actually do a really good job of giving you access to the sounds, but they're surprisingly bad at giving you access to the filters, which I thought was a big part of the sound. So I go to the hardware, I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I do. I want to twist that knob there. Yes, that filter sounds good. You can move that filter in a really smooth way, in a way that if you do that with the contact version, yes, on contact you could do things with right click, assign CC, and move it, and it sounds wrong, or it sounds like you have to change exactly how you map it, because CC mapping actually isn't quite as smooth as the knob that's on the original hardware. So, yes.
But forgive me if I'm wrong, but in the case of a contact instrument, basically you're just using contacts filters, right? The only options you have are contacts filters. Whereas in the case of EMU Proteus, it's the Proteus filter. And of course, as with all synthesizers, digital and analog, the filter, the chipset, the components has such a huge effect on the sort of character of the instrument as a whole. Yeah. So if you're using a contact version of an EMU Proteus, it's basically EMU Proteus samples going through contacts filters, so it's never going to sound the same when you start trying to tweak things.
Yeah,
right?
It's really true. Yeah, I think if you do it in a set it and forget it type of fashion, then the contact version is fine. But if you're actually wanting to move through the quality in a nice smooth way, you either have to really work on it or you just accept that you can't. Actually, oh man, in the chat, Busted Tunes, he says, to be honest, whenever I sample my analog synths to contact, I always sample a few filter values and have contact do a lag crossfade instead of using contact's own filters. That actually makes sense. That actually makes a whole lot of sense, as long as you don't have any phase issues, and yeah, that probably sounds great. So maybe I should think about that. I got to admit, it's been a while since I've actually done my own straight up contact instrument. Contact is annoying. I personally don't like using contact. For me personally, it's easier to make an SFZ than it is to make a contact instrument. It's like,
oh man, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have to pull that up in a session today. And Cubase doesn't like to work with SFZs sound fonts, and I love those. They're so great. They just have all. They're just so workable, and they just have all these things. But man, like Cubase wants to crash my sessions to the end of the world and talk about efficiency. That's out the window.
I know yes. Busted Tunes has this emoji that says "really," and yeah, it's not as powerful as Contact, but I feel like I could just do those things really easily. Like if I'm doing something on a synth, I'm just like recording, it's like bam, bam, bam. I feel like it's actually easier for me to type it out. Yeah. I don't know. Alex, actually, have you done anything with either doing a contact instrument or sforzando patch or something like that?
No, I haven't actually, because like as you know, being a tracker, a renoise user, renoise essentially is a sampler, and so there's no point really in using contact or any third-party sampler, because you get much deeper native integration through renoise's own sampler, which allows you to do all the things that contact can and more, with a whole lot of very interesting options for modulation and a whole range of, I think, something on the order of like 18 different kinds of filters, including comb filters and formant filters and all that kind of stuff that Renoise offers. There was a time when I was feeling a bit nervous about locking myself into creating these patches of my hardware synths in Renoise's format, and instead thinking maybe I should, start using something else like Contact, or UVI's Falcon, or TAL sampler, or any of the other options for samplers out there. So I bought TAL sampler. TAL samplers are really good. And then I've always been eyeing Contact and UVI Falcon. Contact, I did try. I took a stab at it, but it's just so hard to use and just ridiculously complicated, and you just kind of get tired very quickly. It's like, I have no idea what I'm doing with this. This UX makes no sense to me whatsoever, so I just give up. UVI Falcon looks very, very impressive, but obviously comes at a very, very steep price tag. And then, of course, there's also Steinberg's Halion, which is also another player in that space. So, yeah, I did once toy with the idea of having something that was independent of my DAW, so I could easily shift my presets between, whatever DAW I happen to be using. And then the Renoise team released Redux, which is basically Renoise's sampler as a VST AU plugin, which means that I can just use that to load my Renoise instruments in whatever DAW I'm using. Not that I ever use any other DAW, unfortunately, but that's a story for another time. So, yeah, the answer to your question is Contact, no thanks.
Hey, well, that's cool. No mentions of Mach 5 anywhere. Okay.
Ooh, deep cut.
I tried that because, I was hanging around a bunch of hardcore Motu people back in the early 2000s. So, yay. There was that.
My early 2000s doll was what was it? Music Maker, MTV Music Generator. That's where I started making game music.
It's kind of amazing that on the PS2 they had those legit options for real creativity. I mean, hey, you didn't even have a hard drive in that thing, but you still could do things with that.
Yeah, I need to pull out my memory card and go out to. I only had the first one, which is on PlayStation. Then I think I got the PS2 version like 10 years later.
I got the PS2
I didn't
version.
make anything.
I was like, wow, this is neat. It's really neat. Oh, wait a minute. Who's still trying to use Giga Sampler? I'm not trying to use Giga Sampler. Oh man, does anyone still use that?
Nah, I'm not trying to use it. I'm just converting a lot of the Giga samples into Contact instruments.
Yeah, that's the smart thing to do. Ooh, that is the smart thing to do. Yep.
Speaking of hard drives, what do you have we talked about storage and also client delivery and things like that?
We haven't actually.
That might be. Yeah. What are you both using for storage, backup, and then also by extension, how do you usually deliver, make deliveries to clients?
Well, let's see. I actually have a really big answer to that because I just made some really big upgrades to my system. But I don't know, Chase, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, my answer is a lot shorter. I have 2 solid-state drives, one for the backup, one for just not saving anything on the computer because DDoS is very real. Ransomware is very real. And then I have this software called Acronis, which backs it up onto a cloud. And yeah, it takes care of that stuff in there. I can't recommend them enough. They are really on top of the latest of security stuff for your PC or your computer. If you're on PC like me, and probably Macs never get hacked or rarely get hacked, I don't know, but yeah, Acronis is really great. So, and then file delivery to clients. I typically like to ask them what their preference is, and mostly they've just been saying, okay, yeah, we transfer, or we have this repository server, drop it here, or Google Drive. That's typically just the three of those that I get a lot of answers for.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you have you heard of Backblaze? Is Backblaze similar to Acronis? I haven't heard of.
I'm not super sure. I know so Acronis is more of just a cloud backup, a data backup, and like a protection software from the latest threats that are happening as we speak virtually.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually my setup is fairly rudimentary, I suppose compared to that, because most of our projects that we do at Moon Mode will be using Git as our version control. So that's technically a backup in a sense that when I push stuff, then everybody else in the team is getting what I've worked on. So we use Git LFS for mirroring the repo across all of our different machines. Then I also have Backblaze, which is an automated cloud backup system, which is quite affordable. And that basically keeps things synced with a cloud version of my external hard drive. And then, yeah, as for delivery, as you said, it's basically whatever the client wants. So whether it's Drive or whether it's directly into an Unreal or Unity project that's pushed to a repo, or whether it's FTP or, email one by one, every single asset.
CDs.
Whatever. CDs, that's right. Carrier pigeon, whatever they ask for. Vince.
Well, let's see. I recently upgraded stuff. So I actually have a NAS that I've been using for the last 8 years. And I've used that thing for everything, not just for local backup of my project files, but also for serving files directly to clients. So typically, if someone wants something, if they have a specific thing that they want to do, like they want me to submit stuff directly on SVN or Perforce or Git or something like that, then yeah, I'll set up my accounts, make sure that I can deliver to their own repository. But if they're just looking for files, what I will typically do is set up an FTP server on my NAS, and I have a good enough internet connection that they're not going to be limited by this NAS at my home internet. Hey, just go to this web address, put in your user password, I set it up for them, and download all the files that you need. Since a lot of this is music, a lot of these files can be 50, 100, 200 megabytes for really big music files. And it's been pretty good that way. I recently upgraded my NAS. So instead of a hot NAS from 2012, I now have a hot NAS from 2020, which is super awesome. And I've got something like 16 terabytes of that on there. And it's all rated, so it has some redundancy if one of the individual drives actually fails. And then I also do a local backup. I also do a cloud backup to my own Google Drive access. So a lot of that.
He is ready. Vince is ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. No, hopefully we won't see about that. No, let's not see about that, please.
Really quick, why? Can you explain why you did this upgrade and the service it gives overall? And is it just to kind of come into the times, or were you struggling with some other network issues that weren't happening as fluently before?
Well, let's see. In terms of the upgrade, a lot of it was because I wanted to increase the speed with which I was moving things back and forth between my actual computer and my NAS, my network attached storage. Because I realized that even though I have SSDs on my computer, SSDs are only so big unless you want to spend a whole bunch of money. And some of these projects are big. Like, hey, I've got Subversion here with this one game project. This is a 1.5 terabyte game project that I'm dealing with. Is that fitting on an SSD? No, I do have one regular hard drive. But with how fast that networking is these days, you're not really bottlenecking mechanical hard drives that much. So I decided, okay, I'm going to use my network attached storage as also working storage for projects that I've got. So, hey, Subversion, Tortoise SVN works on it fine, mapped to a Windows drive. I have other partitions of my RAID array that are set up for things like FTP server, and the stuff that is going to be backing up from my DAW project directory every day and stuff like that. Yeah, I feel like the power of NASs these days in order to deal with local backup and a really robust system of multiple layers of backup to different places. Oh, I've also got a USB drive that it also backs up to every week, basically. So, so I've got a couple of different local backups as well as my cloud backup. And I feel like you can never be too prepared, honestly. I've had things fail before. I had a really bad failure, I think, back in 2010, 2011. I think that really colored my experience and made it so that I really can't be too over-prepared.
Yeah, it only takes one time for us, especially with our work, for it to be burned. Sometimes a different burn, but we don't expect. But yeah, I know the feeling all too well.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. Your PCs, are they located underneath your tables in your workroom?
Mine is.
So how do you deal with this? Is your PC especially quiet? How do you deal with fan noise and noise from your PC?
Oh, for me, everything is kind of far away. So I'm in this room, and there are wires coming out of this room to my PC. And also,
I see.
there's networking. My network attached storage is actually in a further room, totally separate.
Wow.
So, if, I don't know, knock on wood, if one side of the house burns down, the other side's okay. Something like that. Yes, knock on wood, definitely.
Had to do big knocks. We're in California.
Oh God, yes, that's true. I was scared there for a few weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way I kind of deal with it is I take a leaf blower, I unplug my computer, and when that fan gets out of hand, we go handle it outside with the leaf blower. It means that it's too much dust happening in there. I'm being silly, but I actually am being serious. I did this over the weekend. It was just way too loud, and I actually custom built my computer, so I looked up the ATX size for this, the most minimal fan noise it could possibly have. So it's actually fairly quiet than my 2009/2012 computer that I was using before, because that one obviously was dated. So this one's got the latest stuff in it and the best case I can have. It's still a little bit of fan noise and such, but I've got other things. I'm not always recording too many live instruments here, regardless of what you see behind me and everything.
That's
I have a bit of. I want to see pictures, but yeah, go on, Alex. I wanted to see pictures of that leaf blower. That's all.
Oh, nothing special.
Yeah, Chase turns up to the knife fight with a bazooka with his with the leaf blower. Yeah, I have had a bit of a problem for the entire time that I've had this PC that I'm using, because I used to be a Mac person, and I had to get a PC because I'm doing VR stuff. This was years and years ago, and so because of doing VR stuff, I have a GTX 1080 in this PC, and that thing is loud. And if you're using something that actually uses the graphics card, the GPU, to do the user interface, for example, Cubase, and it's impossible to do recording. Actually, one of the reasons that I'm doing this podcast using this webcam microphone instead of this nice Heil microphone that I have up here is because if I used that, you'd be able to hear my PC. It's so loud. So unfortunately, the place that I'm in, like the small room, I don't have the means to actually kind of put the actual box of the PC anywhere else. It has to be here. I guess I could probably look for one of those kinds of, I don't know, I'm sure they make kind of soundproof boxes and stuff like that. But again, like you, Chase, I don't ever really do that much recording. And if it's any recording, it's usually like stuff like that, which and I'm not like amping it up in here or anything like that. I just go direct with that. So I don't really need it. And I'm kind of used to having this whirring sound under the table. But yeah, it was quite of a sort of an unpleasant surprise. Unpleasant surprise, I actually said. Unpleasant surprise. coming from a Mac, which was really silent, to this kind of grunty VR spec machine with this really loud fan. So I thought, gee, wow, it's like everybody who's using PC to do music production, is this what you all deal with? But I guess it's just because of my graphics card.
Yeah, your graphics card will definitely do some stuff. It's actually kind of amazing, both in good and bad ways, just how much non-video applications are actually using the graphics card. I remember looking at my Windows Task Manager a couple days ago and seeing that when I had Isotope open, I think it was just something simple like Isotope Insight for metering. When I had that open, my GPU performance would actually go up. It was actually utilizing the GPU in order to help with rendering, I guess, the output of Isotope Insight in a way that it wasn't for other plugins or for Windows in general. So, I mean, I guess it's good that it's using the GPU for that instead of the CPU, where it's, I guess, fighting with my plugins and softsynths and whatnot. But still, it's, surprising.
Yeah, I'm not really sure whether, I mean, I've kind of gotten used to it now, and probably the expenditure of funds on some kind of, solution to make it quieter in here is probably not that necessary, really. As long as you guys don't mind me talking to you through this webcam mic.
Hey, I don't mind. I think your takes are fantastic, regardless of the vocal quality. Although I missed that Heil mic. That was a great mic.
I have it. This is actually a Diamante special. Let me just.
Yeah. Put it up there because there's the big brother right there.
Look at that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You got to say one thing. They make them attractive, don't they? I love the red
screen.
Yeah, that's actually to indicate that it's not side. It's actually what do you call it? What's the? Yeah, that's it. End fire. Yeah. So you make no mistake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those dynamic.
So
mics,
anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I always like those Heil mics. I mean, they're known for dynamic mics, but they're dynamic mics with a really nice broad frequency response, and also really surprisingly sensitive. I know Brian in the chat's talking about his Shure SM7 helps a lot with room and PC noise because it's so directional. I know my Heil mics, I really like the sound quality of it, but it's also a little more sensitive. It actually does capture a little bit of stuff coming in off axis compared to a more traditional radio broadcast style mic. So, compromises.
Yeah. Actually, I remember when I received this Heil mic from you, Vince, when you posted it here. Actually, it was here to Sweden, wasn't it?
I think
or was it to
Sweden.
Japan? It was to Sweden, yeah. And it arrived and it didn't work. And it was like a moment of, do you remember that? And it's like, oh my God, it's not working. What's something happened? And so I did the old, just gave it a hard whack on the palm of my hand. and then it worked. So I tried taking it apart and like trying to look to see if I could see a problem, but everything seemed to be okay. So I thought, oh well, it basically at this point it's either trash or just go for it. So you only live once, bang on the hand, and then it works fine.
Awesome.
That actually works. But before we finish, I wanted to chat a little bit about, we normally finish these shows with games or music that we are currently consuming. I wanted to just have a quick chat about the game that I'm just started playing last night. It is Supergiant's latest game, Hades. If you have not checked it out, you only YOLO once.
I mean, I heard that game came out a while ago in early access, but I guess it just recently got its official 1.0 launch, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's exceptional. Like, it's really exceptional. The interesting thing about Supergiant is that they basically kind of shamelessly make the same game over and over again, basically. But as a result of that, they're so good at it that they must have, like, technically and artistically, they must have like such an efficient pipeline for specifically that kind of game. When you compare it to like Bastion and Pyre and Transistor and their other titles, it's basically the same thing. I mean, obviously obviously it's not exactly the same game. Obviously the art style is different. Obviously the music is different, and the game mechanics kind of have the same picture from a different angle, essentially, speaking metaphorically. So it does feel like a fresh game, of course, and it's not the same thing, but they're just so good at that when you play it now, this is what I think their fourth title, I think, or fifth maybe. They've refined that kind of Supergiant style game so well that it is basically a masterclass in Supergiant games, essentially. So speaking to the music and the soundtrack and the sound effects and the voice acting, which has always been one of Supergiant's strengths, it's exceptionally good. So yeah, very, very highly recommended. Darren Korb, I think, is their main audio person, who's a fantastic guy. And once again, he's done a superb job on the soundtrack. Quite an interesting sort of genre, an interesting stylistic choice for the soundtrack as well. And if you watch trailers of the game, you'll hear examples of the genre style that he's going for. But quite an unusual choice, but so masterfully kind of massaged into the aesthetic of the game that it just feels like such a natural fit. And that's a hard thing to do when it's a game that's based all around Greek mythology. So that would sort of kind of hint towards some cues as far as genre goes. But because the art style is so stylized, he's kind of taken that liberty to basically push the music into a direction that's a little bit unusual for this setting. But it's just so masterfully done. So yeah, highly recommended.
That's cool. I've got it sitting on my Switch. I need to get into it. I'm looking forward to it. But there's so much on my queue right now. What about you, Chase? What are you playing? What are you listening to?
Currently, all right, so here's my... if you already know about this, it's okay. I'm not going to get super psyched up. I always get really psyched up. I was like, well, we kind of knew that. That's fine. NeoGeoFun.com. Okay. Not only that, PS1 Fun. Yes, PS1 Fun is awesome. I don't have to spend $300 to play Thunder Force 5. Do you know how excited I am? This is crazy right now. It downloads. Go check out the titles. I think it's PS And then the number one fun.com. Definitely Google it first. Don't go on any like phishing websites or stuff like that. But have a good time on your breaks. It is going to destroy your creativity. Everything that we talked about today, just throw it out the window. This is it. This is how you spend your good time. If you don't want to collect a lot of stuff and waste all that in your digital, this is perfect for you. So that's that. And then the second thing is, I'm starting a new project, and I'm so glad I bought this a while ago. I got Monster Hunter 3 for the soundtrack, so I've been diving into that. I've been playing a little bit of that, getting a little bit of inspiration. Lord knows I got all the instruments to create the soundtrack behind me, so I'm going to be having lots of fun with some microphones and some drumming and all these other things. Plus, I'm selling a lot of old gear, so that's going to be fun to kind of update and create. But yeah, go play PS4 and fun. That's the best part.
Where are you listing your secondhand gear, Chase?
I'm going to be listening on Macari and Craigslist.
Okay.
Right. So,
You got anything juicy that you want to sort of give a bit of a preview shout out for here on the show?
Sure, I got a 12-inch pearl tom that I'm going to be getting rid of. I got the 61 key Axiom, the Axiom 61. I've got Emu, I think X sampler. I got a lot of Elisa's stuff: MIDI Verb 3, Quadriverb 2, the EQ. I'm gonna be getting rid of that stuff. I'm gonna be getting rid of an old BMW car stereo or something like that. So just some random things and such. But yeah, like the samplers, the Elisa's equipment, the Axiom 61K. Oh, and Elisa's drum pad. I'm gonna be selling that as well. And I think one more cool little tech thing in there. But yeah, Tom and all that stuff. But yeah, if you're interested, give me a shout.
Getting rid of the Elisa's Quadriverb. Is that the Quadriverb 1 or 2?
I got the Quadriverb 1 and I have the Quadriverb 2.
wow.
So
okay.
I'm piecing those both out.
Really? What's has software replaced them? They're just not really worth the trouble anymore?
I'm really saving up for a really good mic pre. Really was what's going on. I want to conflate all this space of equipment into like one 500 series and have a nice mic pre so I can record all these nice instruments behind me.
I see.
And not deal with PC sound.
Indeed.
Nice. Very nice.
That's...
Let's see. I guess that brings it to me. I got to admit, I haven't been playing too many games lately. Even though I've got this list, Hades is in the queue. There's a PlayStation game that I pre-ordered that is in the queue, 13 Sentinels, that I've been dying to play since it came out in Japan last year, but I still haven't touched it. But I have been listening to some old stuff, especially old Japanese anime soundtracks. So a month ago, there was this announcement that Flying Dogs Records basically put a bunch of older stuff on Spotify. So it's been really cool looking at these old soundtracks. And by old, I mean, well, 70s, 80s, 90s, which is, just before the big anime boom hit in America. And there's some really good stuff. Right now, I'm really quite fond of the soundtrack to something called the 5-Star Stories film, which came out in the late 80s.
Oh,
And
I
the
remember
soundtrack
that.
to that thing is a beautiful soundtrack. Just beautiful. Tomoyuki Asakawa, who is not as well known as some of the big anime orchestra soundtrack composers that we think of these days. But honestly, you listen to that, the orchestration is wonderful, the writing is wonderful. It is just a really great album. And stuff like that, these 80s Japanese properties that definitely had a lot of love put into the production of them. They're now available on Spotify, and it's been fun checking them out. So that's what I've been doing recently.
Buster Tunes in the Twitch chat is asking, is Flying Dog, is that Yoko Kanno's old label?
Yeah. I think Kanno's old stuff is definitely a part of all of that. So, yeah, you can definitely find a lot of her stuff. And actually, when I think of Kanno, I know that there's a lot of recent stuff that she's done. I think like Terror and Resonance and stuff like that over the last few years. Very good. But I got to admit, Brain Powered from the late 90s was still my favorite of her soundtracks, and that's more than 20 years ago. I don't know, there's just something about the melodic writing in there that still kicks my ass. And of course, it's not just her. A lot of other
Yeah.
composers, a lot of staples of the anime genre from the 90s and 2000s, Shiro Sagisu and
Yeah.
guys like that. Yeah.
For me, Kan no Yoko, it's all about the Macross Plus
Oh God,
soundtrack.
Macross Plus was fantastic.
Love that soundtrack.
Wolverine for me.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm looking at the chat here. People are playing a lot of cool games. Will is on FF13-2, Final Fantasy 13-2, which is a fun game.
Mayuzu.
Yeah. Oh, Michael Hoffman just got a copy of Ring Fit Adventure. A good thing to get. I was definitely on there for a while. I think I stopped. I still have Ring Fit Adventure, but I haven't been very good about keeping up my exercise regimen. It's a fun game, but it's still very much exercise, and I know some people really want that. I need to get better about that. Oh, Brian is playing Doom Eternal. Ooh. Some good stuff.
Nice.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And yeah, Will's talking about, yes, brain powered. The Koei soundtracks back in the day, even before all that anime work, stuff like Uncharted Waters. The Uncharted Waters soundtrack is great. But man, it's amazing what you could do with those NES and SNES soundtracks. Really good stuff. Cool. Okay, it's been an hour, so I guess we can officially call it a Game Audio Hour, right, guys? Woohoo.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone on YouTube, on Twitch, for checking us out today. We're really glad that you could check us out. We're really glad that you enjoy spending some time with us here. We try to make this a regular occasion every other Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitch, on YouTube. You can also like us there, subscribe to us. And if you want, you can message us even on there. I have responded to guys that have messaged us on Twitter even. But that is where you'll be able to find out updates on when our next show is happening. And we're right now well on track to get to episode 200 before the end of the year. Whew. I hope.
One thing that's worth mentioning before we finish up is that normally the next episode would be in 2 weeks' time. However, Game SoundCon is actually happening right at this time in 2 weeks. So
it's probably a good idea
yes, probably
to see you over there instead. Game SoundCon is very cool this year, being easily accessible.
And I have a special announcement for the Game Audio Hour. I will be presenting a talk there this year. It'll be my first time speaking. So if you won't see us here, you can catch one of us there participating in something.
Did you not
be
tell
sure
us
to sign
this
up.
before? Why is this the first time I heard?
I haven't said it on the show. I kept my secret about it.
I saw you in the Game SoundCon on the Game SoundCon page. I thought, Chase, I'm gonna be in that chat room trolling everybody.
Please, come with it. I'm ready.
All right. Okay. Check out Chase's talk and check out the rest of Game SoundCon because that is a cool event. I know it's going to be happening virtually this year, but I'll still be there and hopefully enjoying that along with everyone else. So,
I will be.
Yeah. This was a great Game Audio Hour. I got to admit, I'm still kind of sad that I didn't find out about it until just now. I thought I was special to you, Chase. I thought it was special.
I'm sharing it with you here.
Just like the rest of the Game Audio viewers. Okay. I guess technically with the latency of streaming over the internet, they're probably getting that information about 10, 15 seconds after I do. So I guess I am still special. I'm glad.
Yes, a lot of special events always, and you too, Alex.
That's all right. I knew that you were on there because I saw you on their page, so that's cool. I'm fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm still gonna
Salty.
say that we are all special, and from us special folk to all you special guys that have been watching and listening us today. Later.
Bye.